They all laughed when the CEO insulted the janitor. They thought it was funny, humiliating the man who cleaned their floors. But no one expected what happened next, because the same janitor they mocked would soon hold the CEO's entire future in his hands. Sterling Enterprises, the tallest building in the city, a symbol of power, money, and influence. Inside, the CEO, Donavan Sterling, ruled like a king. Sharp suits, cold eyes, a voice that made employees tremble. And then there was Luis Alvarez, the janitor, invisible to most. He pushed his mop down the marble halls, head bowed, never saying much. But one morning, Donavan noticed him, not with kindness, not with respect. Instead, Donavan sneered. "Look at you, wasting your life with a mop in your hand. Men like me build empires. Men like you clean up the scraps." Executives laughed. Secretaries covered their mouths. Luis said nothing, but his silence burned deeper than any words. Weeks passed. The company was preparing for its biggest deal ever, a billion-dollar government contract. One mistake, one missing document, and everything would collapse. Suddenly, chaos. Servers crashed. Files disappeared. Confidential data was corrupted. Executives scrambled. IT teams failed. The deal was slipping away. And Donavan Sterling? For the first time, he looked afraid. The board gathered in the grand conference hall. Every executive, every investor, all eyes on Donavan. He shouted, "We cannot lose this contract. Fix it." But no one could. The room was silent, hopeless. And then the door opened. Luis Alvarez walked in, the same janitor Donavan mocked, mop still in hand. Donavan snapped, "What are you doing here? This is no place for you." But Luis didn't flinch. "I think I can help," he said calmly. The room erupted in laughter. A janitor? Fixing a billion-dollar crisis? Impossible. But Luis didn't move. His eyes steady. His voice calm. "I used to be a systems engineer. In my country, before I came here, I know what's wrong with your servers." Silence. Whispers. Skepticism. And then the board chair spoke. "Let him try." Luis walked to the computer. Donovan's face turned red, but he had no choice. All eyes were on him. Luis typed, fast, precise. His fingers danced across the keyboard like he'd been waiting for this moment. Minutes passed. The projector screen flickered. And then the missing contract appeared. Safe, untouched, recovered. Gasps filled the room. Applause broke out. Executives who once laughed now stared at Luis with awe. And Donavan, the mighty CEO, he was forced to step forward. His voice cracked. "Luis, thank you. You saved us. I was wrong about you. Please forgive me." Luis stood tall, no longer invisible, no longer the man with his head bowed. He looked Donavan in the eye and said, "Respect is not about money, not about power. It's about humanity. You should never look down on anyone, because the same person you humiliate today may be the one you beg tomorrow." The room erupted again. This time, not for Donavan, but for Luis. Justice was served. The tables had turned, and the janitor had become the hero. For the first time, Luis wasn't invisible. Executives greeted him with respect. Employees whispered his name with admiration. Even Donavan forced a smile whenever Luis passed. But Luis knew better. He knew Donovan's smile hid fear, because Donavan wasn't just afraid of losing money. He was afraid of the truth Luis had uncovered. That night, when Luis stayed late to double-check the restored servers, he stumbled upon a hidden folder. Encrypted, locked, buried deep. Luis hesitated, but curiosity won. He entered a few commands. The folder cracked open. What he saw froze him in place. Emails, bank transfers, illegal payments to government officials. Sterling Enterprises wasn't just a company. It was a machine built on corruption, bribery, fraud, and at the center of it all, Donavan Sterling. Luis' heart pounded. This was bigger than saving a contract. This was criminal. He printed a few pages, tucking them into his bag. But he knew if Donavan ever found out, his life could be in danger. The next morning, Donavan called Luis into his office. The room was silent, the air tense. "Luis," Donavan said with a smirk, "you're a valuable man. How would you like a promotion? A raise? A better life?" Luis stayed quiet, because he knew what this was. It wasn't gratitude. It was bribery, a desperate attempt to keep him loyal and silent. Luis leaned forward, voice steady. "Mr. Sterling, what you did to this company is wrong, and I can't stay silent." For the first time, Donovan's mask cracked, his face twisted with anger. "You think anyone will believe a janitor over me? I built this empire. I own this city. If you cross me, you'll regret it." Luis stared at him. "You once told me I was nothing, but now you're the one begging me." The irony cut deeper than any insult. Word began to spread. Rumors about hidden files. Whispers of corruption. Executives grew nervous. Investors started asking questions. And Donavan Sterling? He tightened his grip on power. But Luis knew. He held the match that could burn it all down. The SUV pulled up beside him. The window rolled down. A man in a dark suit leaned out. "Mr. Alvarez," he said coldly. "Boss wants a word." Luis froze. He could run. He could fight. But he knew Donavan wouldn't stop until he silenced him. So Luis made a choice. He got in the car. They drove him to Donovan's mansion. Marble floors. Crystal chandeliers. Guards at every corner. Donavan waited in his study, glass of whiskey in hand. "Luis," he said, smiling coldly, "you're smarter than I thought. But let's end this nonsense. Give me the files, and you'll never have to work another day in your life." Luis stared at him. Money can't buy back respect, and it won't hide the truth. Donovan's smile dropped. He slammed his glass on the desk. "Do you really think anyone will believe you? You're a janitor. I'm a CEO. People worship me. And people like you are invisible." But Luis wasn't afraid anymore. He reached into his bag. Donavan tensed, thinking he was pulling out the evidence. Instead, Luis pulled out nothing. His bag was empty. Because Luis wasn't foolish. He knew Donavan would come for him. So earlier that day, before heading home, he made copies. He sent them to the board of directors, to journalists, and even uploaded them to a secure drive with timed release. By the time Donavan realized, it was already too late. The next morning, the news exploded. Sterling Enterprises caught in multi-million-dollar bribery scheme. CEO Donavan Sterling under federal investigation. Executives turned on him. Investors pulled out. The empire he bragged about collapsed overnight. And Luis, the janitor no one respected, he walked into the building not as an invisible man, but as the man who brought justice. Employees clapped when they saw him, not for cleaning floors, but for cleaning out corruption. Weeks later, reporters asked Luis how it felt to take down a billionaire CEO. He simply said, "Power is temporary. Respect is forever. Never underestimate the person you think is beneath you, because one day they might be the one to lift you up or bring you down." Donavan Sterling sat in handcuffs, head bowed. The same man who once mocked a janitor was now begging for mercy from the very system he thought he controlled. And Luis Alvarez? He didn't just mop floors anymore. He stood tall as living proof that justice always finds its way. The underdog had won. Justice had been served.